My sister-in-law used my disability to make me look insane. She took advantage of my trust, then got me admitted to a mental hospital. Throw away because my family reads my main account and I'm still processing what happened to me 6 months ago. I'm 28F with autism and ADHD, and I've always struggled with social cues and trusting people too easily. My sister-in-law Vanessa, 32F, exploited those exact vulnerabilities to orchestrate what I can only describe as a calculated campaign to destroy my credibility and have me institutionalized against my will. I need to share this story because I think people need to understand how disability can be weaponized by manipulative family members, and how easily the medical system can be turned against vulnerable people. What happened to me was planned, deliberate, and almost worked perfectly. For context, my brother Ryan, 30M, married Vanessa 3 years ago. I was honestly relieved when he found someone because he'd always been anxious and insecure about relationships. Vanessa seemed confident and outgoing, everything he wasn't. She worked in healthcare administration at a large hospital system, so she seemed knowledgeable about medical stuff and presented herself as very caring and professional. From the beginning, Vanessa was overly interested in my autism diagnosis and my daily routines. She'd ask detailed questions about my sensory issues, my communication difficulties, my medication regimen for ADHD, even my therapy sessions. I thought she was just trying to understand me better as a new family member. I want to make sure I'm being supportive, she'd say. I know autism can be challenging, and I want to learn how to help. She'd ask things like, do you ever have episodes where you lose track of time? Have you ever had problems distinguishing between what's real and what's not? Do you sometimes say things that other people think are inappropriate or bizarre? These questions made me uncomfortable, but I answered honestly because I trusted her. Yes, I sometimes lose track of time when I'm hyper-focused. Yes, I sometimes struggle to interpret social situations correctly. Yes, I sometimes say things that neurotypical people find odd or inappropriate. I thought she was trying to educate herself about neurodivergence. I had no idea she was gathering ammunition. The manipulation started small. Vanessa would invite me to family gatherings and then create situations designed to make me look unstable. She'd change plans at the last minute without telling me, knowing that unexpected changes trigger my anxiety. She'd serve foods that she knew were sensory issues for me, then act concerned when I couldn't eat them. Are you feeling okay? She'd ask loudly in front of everyone. You seem really agitated today. When I'd try to explain that I was just overwhelmed by the unexpected changes, she'd nod sympathetically and say things like, I know change is really hard for you. Maybe we should talk to your doctor about adjusting your medication. She started documenting everything. I didn't realize it at the time, but she was building a case. Every time I had a meltdown, every time I said something that could be taken out of context, every time I struggled with a social situation, she was taking notes and sometimes even recording me without my knowledge. The gaslighting was subtle but constant. She'd tell me she'd said things she hadn't said, then act concerned when I corrected her. She'd move my belongings when I visited their house, knowing that I need my things in specific places, then express worry about my confusion when I couldn't find them. You seem so sure you put your keys on the kitchen counter, she'd say. But they were in the bathroom. Are you feeling okay? Memory issues can be a sign of other problems. She'd also isolate me from other family members by sharing concerns about my behavior. She'd tell my parents that she was worried about my mental state, that I'd been acting erratically, that she thought I might need more intensive treatment. I'm just worried about her, she'd tell my mom. She seems to be getting worse. I think she might need professional help. My family started treating me differently. They'd speak to me in careful, patronizing tones. They'd exchange worried glances when I talked. They'd ask me repeatedly if I was taking my medication, if I was seeing my therapist, if I was feeling okay. I started doubting myself. Maybe I was getting worse. Maybe my autism was more severe than I'd realized. Maybe I did need more help. The crisis she orchestrated happened on a Sunday in March. Vanessa had invited me to a family brunch at her house, supposedly to celebrate my recent promotion at work. I was excited because I'd been doing really well at my job as a software developer, and I wanted to share my success with my family. When I arrived, everything seemed normal at first. But Vanessa had set up what I now recognize as a perfect storm of triggers designed to cause a major meltdown. First, she'd changed the time without telling me, so I arrived an hour early to an empty house. When I called to ask where everyone was, she acted confused and said she'd told me the new time, making me question my own memory. When the family finally arrived, she'd invited several people I didn't know, including some of her coworkers from the hospital. She introduced me as her special sister-in-law who has some challenges but tries really hard. The house was chaos. She'd deliberately chosen loud music, strong scented candles, and had all the lights on fluorescent bright. For someone with sensory processing issues, it was torture. She'd also served foods with textures I can't handle and insisted I try everything, to be polite. When I started showing signs of overwhelm, stimming, avoiding eye contact, speaking more quietly, she drew attention to it. "Are you having one of your episodes?" she asked loudly enough for everyone to hear. "You're doing that thing with your hands again." I tried to explain that I was just overstimulated and needed a quiet space for a few minutes, but she insisted I stay in the main room, so you don't miss anything. The breaking point came when she brought out old family photos, including some from when I was a child having obvious meltdowns. She started sharing stories about my difficult behavior as a kid, framing it as funny family anecdotes but actually painting a picture of serious mental instability. "Remember when Emma used to bang her head against the wall when she got upset?" she said to my parents. "And she'd scream for hours if we moved her toys? We were so worried about her." The way she told these stories made my childhood autism symptoms sound like signs of severe mental illness. She mixed in details that weren't true, exaggerated others, and presented everything in the most alarming way possible. When I tried to correct her or provide context, she'd pat my arm condescendingly and say, "I know you remember things differently, sweetie." Finally, overwhelmed by the sensory chaos, the social performance, and the humiliation of having my private struggles displayed for strangers, I had a meltdown. I started crying, stimming more intensely, and asked repeatedly for everyone to please just stop talking for a minute so I could think. Instead of giving me space, Vanessa jumped into action. "This is what I've been worried about," she announced to the room. "She's been having these episodes more frequently. I think she might be having a psychotic break." She'd set up her phone to record me during the meltdown. Later, I found out she'd been recording me secretly for months, collecting footage of me during stressful moments when I was stimming or having sensory difficulties. "Look at her," she said to her coworker friends, who happened to work in mental health services. "This isn't normal autism behavior. This looks like something more serious." Her coworkers, seeing me in full meltdown and hearing Vanessa's concerns about my recent behavior, agreed that I seemed to be in crisis. One of them was a psychiatric social worker who started asking me questions about my mental state. "Are you hearing voices? Are you having thoughts of hurting yourself or others? Do you know where you are right now?" I was too overwhelmed to answer coherently. I kept saying I just needed quiet, I needed everyone to stop touching me, I needed to go home. But my responses were being interpreted as confusion and potential psychosis. "She's not making sense," the social worker said to Vanessa. "And you said she's been talking about people following her?" This was a lie. I'd never said anything about people following me. But Vanessa nodded seriously. "She's been paranoid lately, always thinking people are plotting against her or talking about her behind her back." The social worker made some calls. Within an hour, paramedics arrived to do a wellness check. Vanessa had convinced them that I was having a psychotic episode and posed a danger to myself. "She's been showing signs of a serious mental health crisis," she told the paramedics. "Her family is really concerned." I tried to explain that I was just autistic and having a sensory meltdown, but nobody would listen. Vanessa had positioned herself as the expert on my condition, and she had apparent medical credentials and worried family members backing up her claims. "Autistic people don't usually have episodes like this," she told the paramedics. "This looks like something more serious. I work in healthcare, and I've seen this before." The paramedics wanted to take me to the hospital for evaluation. When I refused, they said they had grounds for involuntary commitment based on the reports of my erratic behavior and potential psychosis. I was taken to the emergency room in restraints, despite never having threatened anyone or shown actual signs of psychosis. Vanessa rode in the ambulance, continuing to provide helpful information about my recent behavior and her concerns about my mental state. The next 72 hours were the most terrifying of my life. I was placed on a psychiatric hold based entirely on Vanessa's reports and the testimony of her co-workers who'd witnessed my meltdown. The intake process was a nightmare. Every attempt I made to explain that I was autistic and had been deliberately triggered was interpreted as further evidence of mental instability. The patient claims her sister-in-law deliberately triggered her episode, one nurse noted in my file. Shows signs of paranoid thinking. Patient insists she was set up and that her family is conspiring against her, another entry read. Demonstrates lack of insight into her condition. They put me on antipsychotic medication despite my protests that I wasn't psychotic. When I had adverse reactions to the medication, which is common for autistic people, they used it as evidence that I was more unstable than originally thought. Patient is non-compliant with medication and showing increased agitation, they wrote. May require extended observation. Vanessa visited me every day, playing the role of the concerned sister-in-law. She'd bring flowers and speak to me in soothing tones while subtly reinforcing the narrative that I was seriously mentally ill. I'm so glad you're getting the help you need, she'd say. We've all been so worried about you. She'd ask the staff about my progress and share additional concerns about my behavior at home. She told them I'd been talking to myself, forgetting to eat, staying awake for days at a time. All lies, but presented with such concern and apparent medical knowledge that the staff believed her. She's been deteriorating for months, she told my assigned psychiatrist. The family has been trying to get her help, but she's been resistant to treatment. The psychiatrist, Dr. Morgan, was initially sympathetic to my explanations about autism and sensory issues. But Vanessa's consistent reports of concerning behavior, combined with her professional demeanor and apparent expertise, gradually convinced him that I was more impaired than I claimed. Patients with autism can develop comorbid psychiatric conditions, he told me. It's possible that you're experiencing symptoms that go beyond your autism diagnosis. I tried to get him to contact my regular therapist, Dr. Chen, who knew me well and could verify that I wasn't psychotic. But Vanessa had told the staff that Dr. Chen was concerned about me and thought I needed more intensive treatment. When Dr. Chen finally came to see me on the third day, I was so relieved I started crying immediately. Emma, what happened? She asked. Your family called and said you'd had a psychotic break, but this doesn't match anything I know about your mental state. I told her everything, about Vanessa's manipulation, the setup at the brunch, the deliberate triggering of my meltdown. Dr. Chen listened carefully and took detailed notes. This sounds like targeted abuse, she said. Someone who understands your autism symptoms has been deliberately manipulating them to make you appear mentally unstable. Dr. Chen spoke with Dr. Morgan and provided documentation of my treatment history, showing that I'd never had any psychotic symptoms or serious mental health crises. She explained that autism meltdowns, while intense, are not the same as psychotic episodes. Emma has been my patient for 3 years, she told the hospital staff. She's never shown signs of psychosis, paranoia, or serious mental illness beyond autism and ADHD. What's been described to you sounds like someone has been deliberately triggering her autism symptoms. But the damage was done. I'd been labeled as having had a psychotic episode, and the hospital was reluctant to admit they'd made a mistake. They kept me for the full 72-hour hold, just to be safe. When I was finally released, I discovered that Vanessa had been busy during those 3 days. She'd contacted my employer to express concerns about my mental state and my ability to do my job safely. She'd told my landlord that I might need supervision or assisted living arrangements. She'd even contacted my bank to suggest that I might need help managing my finances. I'm just worried about her ability to make good decisions right now, she'd told people. She's been really unstable lately. My reputation was in ruins. My family looked at me differently. My coworkers treated me like I was fragile and potentially dangerous. My landlord started asking intrusive questions about my mental health. But the worst part was that everyone praised Vanessa for being such a caring, dedicated sister-in-law who had probably saved my life by getting me the help I needed. Thank God for Vanessa, my mother said. If she hadn't recognized how serious this was, who knows what might have happened. Vanessa had successfully positioned herself as my hero while destroying my credibility and independence. It took me months to understand the full scope of what Vanessa had done to me. With Dr. Chen's help, I started piecing together the pattern of manipulation and documenting the deliberate triggering of my symptoms. We realized that Vanessa had been studying my autism symptoms and triggers for years, building a detailed understanding of how to manipulate my behavior. She'd used her healthcare background to give her manipulations medical credibility and her position in the family to gain access to my vulnerabilities. This is a form of disability abuse, Dr. Chen explained. She weaponized your autism symptoms to make you appear mentally unstable. It's calculated and extremely harmful. Dr. Chen helped me file complaints with the hospital about the inadequate evaluation and forced medication. She also helped me document the pattern of abuse for potential legal action. But proving what Vanessa had done was incredibly difficult. She'd been careful to present everything as loving concern. Her lies were mixed with enough truth to be believable. Her professional credentials gave her statements weight that mine didn't have. When I tried to confront my family about what had really happened, they were skeptical. Vanessa has been nothing but supportive, my father said. She's the one who recognized you needed help. But Dad, she deliberately triggered my meltdown. She recorded me without my permission. She lied about my behavior to medical professionals. That sounds paranoid, honey, my mother said gently. Maybe you should talk to Dr. Morgan about these feelings. Even my brother Ryan, who knew me better than anyone, had been convinced by Vanessa's narrative. I saw how you were acting that day, he said. You were really out of it. Vanessa probably saved your life. Ryan, you've seen me have meltdowns before. You know what they look like. This wasn't different except that Vanessa made sure it happened in front of medical professionals. I don't know, Em. You seemed really paranoid and confused. Maybe you don't remember it clearly. The gaslighting had been so effective that even people who loved me couldn't see what had really happened. Vanessa had created a false narrative that was more believable than my truth. I started avoiding family gatherings. I couldn't bear to be around Vanessa, who continued to play the role of concerned sister-in-law. She'd ask about my medication, my therapy, my recovery from the episode. How are you feeling? She'd ask with fake concern. Are you staying compliant with your treatment? The word compliant felt like a threat. She was reminding me that she had the power to have me hospitalized again if I didn't play along with her narrative. I started documenting everything. I kept detailed records of our interactions, recorded conversations when possible, and built a timeline of her manipulative behavior. Dr. Chen helped me recognize the patterns and validate my experiences. You're not paranoid, she assured me. This really happened. Your perception of events is accurate. Slowly, I began to rebuild my sense of reality and my confidence in my own perceptions. The breakthrough came when I discovered that Vanessa had done this before. Through online autism support groups, I connected with someone else who'd experienced similar manipulation from a family member. This person had successfully documented the abuse and gotten legal protection. They use our autism symptoms against us, she explained. They know we have trouble with social situations and self-advocacy, so they manipulate us in ways that are hard to prove or explain to neurotypical people. She helped me understand that what I'd experienced wasn't unique. Disabled people, especially those with invisible disabilities like autism, are often targeted by manipulative family members who use their disabilities to gain control or eliminate them from inheritance, family dynamics, or other situations. Armed with this knowledge and Dr. Chen's support, I began building a stronger case against Vanessa. I found evidence of her lies, documented her pattern of manipulation, and gathered witness statements from people who'd observed her behavior over time. The turning point came when I discovered she'd been embezzling money from Ryan's business account while positioning herself as my responsible caretaker. Her manipulation of me had been part of a larger pattern of deception and control within the family. When Ryan found out about the financial theft, he finally began to question other things Vanessa had told him about me and our family dynamics. She said you'd been acting paranoid and talking about people plotting against you, he said during one difficult conversation. But now I'm wondering if she was the one plotting. With Ryan's support and Dr. Chen's documentation, I was able to get a restraining order against Vanessa and have the psychiatric hold removed from my medical record. The hospital conducted an internal review and admitted that they'd failed to properly evaluate my autism diagnosis before treating me for psychosis. Vanessa was eventually charged with financial crimes related to her theft from Ryan's business, but the disability abuse charges were harder to prove. The legal system still struggles to recognize and prosecute this type of manipulation. Ryan divorced her, and she moved away from our area. But the damage to our family relationships has been lasting. Some family members still believe her version of events and think I'm being vindictive by refusing to forgive someone who tried to help me. I'm in a different place now. I have better boundaries, a stronger support system, and a clearer understanding of how my disability can be weaponized against me. I've learned to be more cautious about sharing information about my autism symptoms and triggers. But I'm also angry that the medical system failed me so completely. Angry that my family was so easily manipulated. Angry that predators like Vanessa can use our disabilities against us with so little accountability. I share this story because I want other disabled people to understand that this type of abuse exists and that it's not their fault when it happens. I want families to be more skeptical of sudden concerns about a disabled family member's mental state, especially when those concerns come from someone who stands to benefit from the disabled person being discredited. Most importantly, I want medical professionals to understand that autism meltdowns are not psychotic episodes, and that disabled people's reports of abuse should be taken seriously even when they seem paranoid or confused. What Vanessa did to me was deliberate, calculated, and devastating. She nearly destroyed my life by exploiting my disability and the prejudices of the medical system. But I survived, and I'm using my experience to help other people recognize and resist this type of abuse. Trust your instincts. Document everything. Find allies who understand your disability. And never let anyone convince you that your reality isn't real.